Good morning, everyone. Thank you for being here with us today. And I want to follow up on some of the remarks that you've made with regard to technology, and specifically broadband access for college students. And we've read a great deal about the challenges faced by our elementary and secondary students who had to transition to remote learning in 2020, and lack of computer hardware, computer skills, lack of access to high-speed broadband infrastructure in our rural and even in our densely packed populated cities, a lack of funds to pay for not only the computer but also for access to the internet in the home have been identified and very well documented. And I think what has received far less attention in the press is how our college level students and their institutions are coping with similar challenges when on-campus classes are not permitted. And as the chair of the Senate Communications and Technology Committee, I'm very interested in hearing your experiences and perspectives on the specific challenges that your students have faced in that transition to remote internet learning. And when your institution made the decision to go remote only, what was your overall assessment of the preparedness of your student body, specifically in regard to computer literacy, to transition smoothly to this new situation? And how has your institution been able to assist your students in meeting challenges during the past year with regard to equipping them with hardware, software, training, and assistance in accessing high-speed broadband internet? And then if you could speak to the institutional steps that you're taking for ongoing computer technology support to your students to minimize disruptions associated with future shifts between in-person and remote learning. Talk in terms, if you could, of technology training and support for our college students. And if you could share your priorities for investment in that area. I know that's a lot to unpack.
Senator, I could speak from the vantage point of preparedness of some students. We found as we pivoted to online learning, we found that there were many students, especially first generation students, and students from neighborhoods where broadband was not widely available. We found that there's a digital divide. And that digital divide, Temple University made every attempt to overcome, both by providing hardware, software, but also making our facilities available. We just opened up a brand new library, a spacious library. We have a tech center. We made certain that students could come and use those facilities, especially if they found that in their neighborhoods, they had difficulty getting consistent, easy access to online education. Secondly, also realize I'm an educator by nature. Actually, before coming to the university, taught in elementary school. And so I'm very sensitive to differences in abilities and interests of students. And we found certainly that some students take right away to online learning. For others, it's a struggle. Some students just struggle online learning, and they get prepared with technology, technology learning, but we always have to be sensitive to the fact that there are differences in student learning patterns. Some students do best in person, some students do best online, some students do best in writing, some students do best orally, and so on. We need to be sensitive to student differences and helping students to succeed. And that clearly is one of the things that our Temple University, both through its Teaching Learning Center and through its technology support systems, is focusing on.
Senator, you asked such a broad question. I'm not going to do it service fully, but I think You know, it's been really transformative in a lot of ways, right? So I think this pandemic uncovered just how digitally dependent we are in so many ways, right? So the continuity of education mission that we pursued in the midst of the pandemic was fundamentally made possible by being able to use these kind of remote and distance learning technologies. And whatever differences, you know, both, and this cuts across faculty, staff, and students, had with their sort of digital literacy to be able to effectively use that technology was very uneven. We had to kind of reinvent service operations to deliver them remotely on the fly to these different audiences. It was one of the major kind of very non-technology but human sides of the response was kind of a complete restructuring, rethinking of computer IT support. The other big shift, which, you know, was kind of a blind spot, but, you know, universities tend to have very mature internet infrastructure. We have a lot of broadband capability. We have wireless immersed through our residence halls. We have a lot of, you know, hotspots on our campuses. But the pandemic had people trying to access this from all over the country because they were participating remotely and maybe were not on our campus. And so we had to extend our service to home. And again, to, you know, take the technology to where the student was, not ask the student to come into the campus. That was really another eye-opener, and I think really changed the way we think about providing support. We provided technology if that technology was lacking. And then I think, you know, just to touch on something that's a little bit beyond your question, but, you know, the universities, because of that infrastructure, have a special role as anchor institutions. You know, coming back to Senator Williams' point about K through 12, you know, they were also trying to transition to distance learning. And a lot of these communities did not have a campus-like broadband, high-speed internet environment. You know, one advantage of our regional campuses and even our Oakland campus was the ability to extend our infrastructure into communities. So we've been installing broadband antennas on the Cathedral of Learning, working with local partnership providers, working in partnership with CMU to extend a high performance broadband network into local communities in Pittsburgh, providing tech support to those neighborhoods and those communities, providing donated equipment to high school and middle school students, and extending our help desk to those students, even though they're not enrolled college students at the University of Pittsburgh. And I think that just points that, you know, the interconnectedness, you know, those are our future students. It was in our interest to work with them and make sure their education wasn't disrupted either. So it doesn't do your question full service, but it's really been remarkable. And I think, you know, that learning is now going to be embedded in what we do. I think that our IT operations come out much more sophisticated. They're starting now to look at how does this become a platform to extend the university beyond where it was, not to replace what it was. And I think there's some of the most exciting innovation is coming out of those teams right now.
I appreciate that very much. And certainly as we look to close the digital divide in the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania, that is the kind of information that will assist us in our efforts to reach every community that lacks access, rural, urban, and in between. So I thank you very much. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Senator.